I just disregard. Yes, I know. No, I know. Sorry. Go to the basketball game. I wanted to support Princeton. Maybe next week for the workshop. I'm also looking at the organization.
We're live and we're talking. We're live.
Just be like a
Yeah.
Call the school board meeting to order. Would you please rise? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You think the roll call minutes reflect that everyone here is except for Craig Johnson. Are there any citizen comments?
No.
No citizen comments. We'll go to fall commendations.
Well, we've got a full house here tonight. So we'll start calling people up here. And what we do usually is you walk around, all the way around, and shake hands with the board members, and then go back to your seats. That's okay. So I think we'll start with. I'm going to wait to have tennis until Kelsey can be here. We have robotics, Ethan Trebernig. Ethan, is he here? Not here. Okay, let's see here. And Ethan is on robotics. Team ranking 4th out of 64 teams at the high school level. And I'll read the rest of the ones from that team. Jacob Augustin is not here. Sabrina Treberning, no. Hugh is here. And Isabella Ram. Is she here? Okay. I'm going to ask Hugh to take these two his, or I can send them over to high school. Do you see them? I do. I'll give it to him just this month. How about that? Okay. All right. And then the next one is the Create Us Open Robotics Competition winners. And the first one is Luke Bordeaux. Trinkas. Elsa Wogan. Oh, wait, we're on a different team now, aren't we? Yes, this is the VEX IQ World Robotics Tournament. Elsa Wogan. And Isabella Whitworth. Congratulations. And Alexis Diedrich. And Lucy Knudsen. Congratulations. And I see we're missing one certificate for Kevin the robot. Yes, so let's give Kevin the robot. And I think then we just have tennis and that's all, right? Okay. Do we have tennis players here yet? No? And cross country? No? Alexis, are you sure? No.
She's on vacation.
She's on vacation?
Yeah.
Okay, and Riley and Kelsey Dorr. So Riley Shepard, I know, couldn't come tonight, and Kelsey is supposed to be here in 4 minutes. So how about if we go ahead and then give it to her when she comes? All right, thank you.
We'll move on to item number 6 under the reports. We'll go with board member committee reports. Start with Howard.
No committee meetings.
I had officers training on Saturday from 8 to 3, and I took a class while I was there on chair and vice chairing meetings. And then,
For chair and vice chair, and that was on last Tuesday, I believe.
Right. I helped with the Whole Life Challenge finales, and that went really well. I also went to finance and long-range planning.
And I did the long-range planning and finance report.
I went to Rum River Special Ed Co-op on Thursday, and that information is at the end of the agenda, so I'll just end. And I also went to officers training on Saturday and attended the session for clerk.
Student council report.
Nothing to report currently, but we will be starting to plan spring fling pretty soon.
That time of year.
Yeah, already.
Superintendent report.
Just a couple things. It's been interesting snow days since we had no school for kids. You would think that would be pretty low key, but we still had Tiger Club to decide whether we had school or not. And we also had staff development and whether or not we wanted our teachers to be in harm's way on their way here. But we did have the teachers work at home on their grades yesterday. And then today we had staff development, but we did have a late start because of the roads. I think it was one of our best accepted staff development today. We had Dr. Clayton Cook from the University of Minnesota, and he talked to us about how important it is to have relationships, which is like singing to the choir in most cases with teachers. But we had everyone there. We had bus drivers, we had paras, food service, we had, what am I forgetting, secretaries, and we had at-will employees. Everyone was there today, so it was a really good session. That's all.
Great. Move on to item number 7, approve the agenda. Do I have a motion for the agenda?
So moved.
Motion was by Howard Bamford. Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Seconded by Deb Alm. Any discussion?
I'm interested in discussing an item on the consent agenda. Do you want to wait till that discussion, or how do you want to do that?
When we get to the consent agenda, you can ask to put it under discussion items. You can ask her, you can add it. Any other discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Number 8, discuss and act on previous board minutes. Motion. Motion was made by Chad Young. Is there a second?
Second.
Second was by Eric Strandberg. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Eric?
Yes. So we're going to pause briefly as we go into the consent agenda. I think some tennis players have arrived.
Okay. This is Kelsey Dorr. We're happy to celebrate with her. She was in tennis doubles with Riley Shepard, and they got second in state, which is quite an achievement. Kelsey you were playing tennis, that's why you're late.
Do you want her to take credit?
Sure.
I can take it.
All right, so real quick, can you have an initial with the council answer?
You don't want her to get called in.
All right, item number 9, consent agenda. Sue?
I just want some discussion on the personnel item of Spanish teacher.
You want to discuss that?
I want to discuss it. I don't know if it needs to be separate. I just have some discussion. I don't know if it has to be voted on separately or I don't.
Well, so you want to talk about a specific personnel
Recommendation.
So you want to remove the personnel item from the consent agenda, and within that, you want to remove the one,
The Spanish.
the Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to defer to Deb. Can we do that? I know we can remove an item from the consent agenda. Anyone can do that for discussion. But a specific.
It depends upon what the discussion is, actually, you can't.
Get too specific.
That's my understanding. Right?
Just have to follow data privacy protocol. Right.
Oh, multiple.
What you could do is just remove it for later, like next meeting, if you can.
She can talk about it if she doesn't talk about the person. She can talk about the position.
Okay.
All right. Well, then we'll
Mm-hmm.
we'll remove the whole personnel, the item A, and we'll put it at the end under number 12 as an addition to the agenda. All right. So do I have a motion for the consent agenda items B through D?
So moved, yes.
Motion was made by Deb Holm. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Eric Strandberg. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Number 10, information. First reading of policies. All those policies are listed.
It's a long list of policies, and most of them are all just reviewed, meaning we're keeping them, but we're changing the date because we did review them in our committee. but there were a few changes. Policy 801 on equal access to school facilities. We changed the definition of the grade levels to match our district. So it was in a different configuration and we changed it to our configuration. Policies 805, which is waste reduction and recycling, 806, which is crisis management, and 807, which is health and safety, and 903, which is visitors to school district buildings and sites. We took the MSBA updates, most of which were reference updates. So, and then policy 808, we had a misspelling that we corrected from when we first adopted that service animal policy, and policy 902 on facilities use. We separated the procedures from the policy as we did activities and some other things that we had.
So the second reading on those will be coming up at our next board meeting in April. All right, strategic plan update goal number 4.
That is me here. Pull up a couple of slides. So I am here to talk about our strategic plan goal number 4, which is digital learning. So I know it's March. I'm going to give you an introduction to the goal for the year, as well as a mid-year update and kind of check in on where we're at. So I do have access to all the slides at that shortened URL on the bottom of this page as well. Have that in front of you. So our goal 4 talks about digital learning. So what we did is anything that related specifically to instructional strategies got moved into our goal 1, which is personalized learning. But digital learning focuses on these 3 key points. So we want to align leadership to drive instruction. So building leadership, teacher leadership, district leadership to really drive that digital learning. And then we want to continually assess our instructional and technical support infrastructure, as we say. So, is our technical support supporting teachers and what they want to do? Our instructional support's there to really support digital learning. And the third piece of this goal is professional development, and it talks about providing teachers with anywhere learning differentiated to meet every need. So this piece of professional development was moved in there. I can talk a little bit more. That's a goal that we're addressing a little bit farther out, but I will talk about the work that we've done on this. I apologize if these screens are flashing. So the first piece of this is aligning leadership to drive instruction. So the biggest piece is that we're taking digital learning or educational technology and tying it back to everything else that we're doing. There's a lot of different frameworks that we could use when it comes to using technology in the classroom, but we know that in order to simplify it for our teachers, we really need to break it down and tie it all back into our instructional framework. So prior to this year, we've done a lot of work to help break down some of Marzano's instructional strategies and look at where technology supports those strategies. So we've mapped that out a lot of different ways. This year, we're taking our Princeton paradigm, which is this tree here. I know it's kind of hard to see. What we're doing is taking this Princeton paradigm and tying back all of the technology resources that support that type of instruction. So when we look at who it is, who we are, and what do we do, this Princeton paradigm, this tree is meant to really define all of that and summarize all of that. And so we are connecting a lot of different pieces, not just technology, but specifically related to this strategic plan goal. We're tying back in, where does video support something like developing social and emotional learning skills like we talked about this morning. So that's really where we're at. This was a new framework that we've just helped remap this year. Not a new framework, but just a new image, a new way of looking at it to really summarize everything that we're doing. So that work is currently in progress. That's something that's been new this year. And we talked about aligning leadership, still aligning our building level leadership. So we have technology coaches in our building that we're continually working with to help support those classroom teachers, as well as principals and administrators to lead digital learning across our school system here. One piece that I wanted to highlight is we have student boot camps we're called, that we're calling them, and I linked them in here. What we're doing is trying to articulate just like social and emotional learning skills. There are a lot of digital citizenship, to not use a better phrase, a lot of skills that we know students need to know and need to learn how to do. And so we're laying out, where are we teaching email? Where are we teaching students what is safe to post online, grade by grade. So this student boot camp link that I put in here is the start of this work. I just want to open this up to show what it looks like right now. Right now by school building level. So we're looking at where and what building are we teaching certain skills, especially principals, maybe see a lot more of a lot of issues that come to light. And so what we're trying to do is focus more on the education side of that and look at not just some of the tools we use, like using Google Hangouts, but talking to online safety, using CSA, some of those tools that we know all of our teachers use, and kind of ingraining those into our day-to-day lessons. So it's not an extra piece on top of what we do, or in just an extra classroom where somebody like Brenda is the only person teaching and supporting that, because it's online safety is such a big topic that we really need to help develop some ownership. And this is one tool that we're doing right now to really help be able to hand that off to other teachers very easily of, this is something you're interested and passionate about. Here's a really quick, easy lesson. So all of these link out to other lessons either that we've made or from Common Sense Media or other sites online. Just one piece that I want to highlight that we worked on. We started 2 years ago. We revised it this past August. It's something that I'm very excited about continuing to grow. And finally, looking at assessing both our instructional and technical support. So we use a survey tool as a summative measure of the impact and effectiveness of our technology support. And that actually just went out to staff yesterday. We also have a student survey that our students take, and it asks a lot of questions around what people are doing with technology in the classroom, but also questions about internet speed. Are we fixing your problem fast enough? How long is that sort of stuff taking? And then we're also monitoring bandwidth, not just on Google and digital tools, but monitoring. A lot of our tools are really looking at what are the tools we have that we pay for? Can we use those better? Is there any low-hanging fruit? Where can we really go from there? As an example of that, and I know bandwidth statistics might not be the most exciting thing to you, but they are to me. This is just a snapshot of our bandwidth usage on a day-to-day. And so we do have room to grow right now. I know that's a question I get a lot. Is there capacity to the internet that we have? Yes, there is, but we are not necessarily close to that by any means. And so right now, like at my personal home, I get by 12 megabyte internet. I can't get any faster in my house. You can see on average, we're hovering at around that 91, up to 361 megabits per second, which is, we're able to go, I guess where we're able to go from here, what does this really mean, or why do you care about this? We're at 361, let's say. We can grow that up to and over 1,000 right now with our current internet setup, which is really important because we are able to handle that fluctuation. So as we grow that, we not do it on that rabbit hole, but we buy internet as a collaborative with 17 other school districts. And so we're able to purchase a large amount of internet, and there is room to grow. But it's definitely something that I keep my eye on and that we watch very closely, and that I at least want to kind of keep on the forefront. And also to look at our collaboration tools and how that has really taken off. I know I've shared some statistics around how teachers are using Google Classroom or how Google Docs has really taken off. So this is just a snapshot of an average day. I don't have any screen turned on. Let me figure out why this is continuing to flash. So I picked a lower day. I didn't want to pick a high day to highlight, but on the average day, that shows there were 444 Google documents made just in our district alone, just the average day, which, we know students are creating, we know students are working online. We can also pull other stats on how they're collaborating. Brenda here could probably guess which day of the week 90 of those were related to her classroom. But I think watching those sorts of statistics are important for us so that we can really plan and grow and adapt to the needs of both our teachers in the classroom as well as kind of the technology to come. So the third component of this that I mentioned we're just starting to grow on is providing teachers with this anywhere learning and really differentiating our professional development. So this summer coming up, we are slated to offer a digital learning boot camp again. And the idea is that that's time for our teachers to plan as well as learn some of the day-to-day tools that they use in a one-to-one environment, one-to-one technology environment. So we offer that in an online, just completely online. So we wrote that whole workshop as if somebody's going to go through that workshop at home or at their cabin or wherever they need it to be. We're able to connect with people on Google Hangouts, provide them feedback within Google Classroom online. And so that's been a pretty important piece of that professional development. I know for a lot of teachers, I think we've had, I want to say just over 15 teachers now over the 2 years go through just the online version of that. And it's not, we wouldn't have been able to get them in face-to-face for 3 full days in the summertime. So that's been a pretty successful workshop that we're still growing. We have our technology integration specialist, Jody Berling, offering a lot of face-to-face professional development after school, before and after school. And we're really shifting that focus to instruction and learning and how technology can support or accelerate that. It's not just technology for flashy technology's sake, because it is fun, but really to focus on where we are best supporting instruction and learning. What questions do you guys have for me on that? Introduction and mid-year check-in for Goal 4.
Yeah.
On the bandwidth, I know they're changing or they're trying to regulate so that if you're gonna get higher speeds, internet speed, you have to pay for that. Is that gonna happen? So we have to be paying for that faster bandwidth. You mentioned.
We will. I said we buy that through our collaborative, so the cost increases are easy enough for us to bite off. But right now, there are people within that monitor that a lot more closely than we do here, and we have room for growth. 2 times a year, we look at that and say, what do we need to do for next year to get this contract in place? So since I've been here, that group of 17 school districts through ECMEC has gone from 500 megabits per second to 1 gig. And now we are up to 2 gigs total shared, so 2,000 megabits per second, that's a lot of growth just in 4.5 years. But it's a conversation that we could talk about for there's a lot of different pieces that come into play with it because it will cost more, but we are looking at that. We have the ability to continue to grow, and the way that we buy internet will allow it to grow without being too big of a burden for Princeton.
So the cost isn't too significant.
It doesn't change, for Princeton, it's not anything drastic.
For that summer boot camp, is that just a specific time frame you have, or is there an online course that the teachers can do at their leisure anytime throughout the year?
So we've set it up so that it was a summer boot camp, so we've offered it throughout the 3 months of summer. Right. The idea that we're paying teachers for their time as if it was face-to-face. But depending on this teacher, we worked with them to do that, whether it's over 3 months. A lot of teachers have sat down and said, this is my week to do it, but I might be in Washington, D.C. this week. So we just worked with them to really see what will fit best, so we can help them with that way.
I appreciate the support that you're giving to teachers for helping them integrate the technology into their teaching, because that's super important. And I know that they appreciate that. So that's great.
Thank you. Thanks for feedback. We're really able to do a lot. The first part of this was aligning our building and district leadership, really having the support of our teachers, a lot of our lead teachers within the building.
So that's one thing to have kids to have a device, and it's another thing to have them actually use it to learn versus use it to pulling that all together. Just Google Classroom isn't enough. So I appreciate your efforts in that way.
Are you happy with the progress that we're at so far with goal 4 at this? Are we at a place where you would hope to be at this point?
We have, yes, I'm really excited with the progress that we made. I think the more that we can, what I hear positive feedback on is the more that we can simplify what we're doing to make it seem like it's, it's all connected. So if we're talking about formative assessment as an instructional strategy, we're backing that up with here's some technology that can help you do that, as well as support on the data side of here's how to work with that data. Here's a way to differentiate for gifted or struggling students, so accelerated students. So I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on that end, and I've made a lot of strides. There's a lot of work to do.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move on to high school registration.
Here's my attire. I'm going to the game. I believe I'm here to talk about the memo requesting cap size adjustments. Cap sizes means the limit of a section. So currently our caps are at 30, and sometimes we have to go over that. We recognize, no? 25 to 30.
Program of studies. You're
Oh.
talking about program of studies.
Oh, I thought it was about the memo.
Registration guide.
Oh, I thought it was registration numbers. I'm sorry. So the registration guide, do they have it?
Yep.
Okay. There's not a lot of changes. I'll need the memo, I guess. Yeah, I got this here.
Okay.
Our first request is, I just scrolled through. This is a memo. The format is fairly similar to what we've given you in the past few years. The new course that we've requested, the first one is AP Macro. 2 years ago, we kind of had board action that gave us a bit of leeway, some go ahead if we can add AP courses as we see fit and as we can. But giving you a heads up, I think is reasonable. Macroeconomics would be the third trimester. Try 1 and 2 are micro, so AP Micro. This would be trimester 3, and it would prepare students for this portion of the AP test as well. We have already had a teacher that has gone to training, and we're hoping that he will go again. And we have students that would probably take this right now. Remember that you can take an AP test without taking the course. Of course, you're more likely to be successful if you take the course. Mr. Molman is working with, I think, 4 students this trimester. They want to try this test, so he's working with them, which is great. We think all the cost of that, the books and such, will use what we currently have purchased. The second one is forensics. This is a science department elective, and there's a change in the offerings. So it kind of goes with the astronomy course. Earth and space would be removed. Forensics would be added. Astronomy would be added. So it's the same number of courses that are out there, but these align better to student interest and eliminate some redundancies in our current curriculum. And actually, forensics is one that the science department has wanted to look at for a while, so they're excited about that possibility. We have deleted Earth and Space, as I mentioned. German 2, that's part of a plan that we shared with you previously as we're phasing out German. Food chemistry has been grayed out in the book, you'll notice. We needed to, what do I want to say? Get our registration more stable with food chemistry and our applied chemistry. And so we've shifted all the curriculum and we've included some of both to meet the standards. Entrepreneurship is eliminated. We have not run that. And AP Music Theory has run its course. We've offered it. We've offered music theory prior to that. We can never get enough students to take it. We try for 3 years. It's typically our pattern. And we don't believe that that pattern will change. So to remove it, there's a couple of reasons. One, we haven't seen the interest level significant enough that we think it will be successful. And when you have, let's say, even 15 students sign up for something, or 8, when those numbers are low, they typically will be lower because you know that there will be some conflicts because we know our groups of students. So that takes those numbers and they're already causing more error in what we have to work with. So this will increase our accuracy of our original registration numbers. We have a new support tool, the career pathway. Do you have that? Well, good. Good thing we're relying on me to bring it. This tool is, you should recognize it from the state wheel, and it's based on that. It may morph. Some of the other districts that we're looking at have simplified the wheel, and they haven't listed every pathway. We chose to go with every field. We have all the fields on there. Not every course is listed, which is somewhat controversial yet. For example, you could list every English class sort of everywhere. You could list every math class everywhere. World language could go many places. So we're not doing that. It just makes it unreadable and unuseful. We have rolled this out with some students already. They like it. It's something new. It's a different way to look at it. We're putting in our Perkins grant request funding to have, we typically work with Becky Cartwright. She does some of this. It's a pretty high level. I could create that wheel, but you wouldn't see it for another year and a half. She can do it in about an hour and a half. So we have funding that can be used for that. It's called a program of study. And next year we're already starting to work with her. This would have, like, if a course is listed there on the website, it would be a hot link, so it would go to that course description. So we're playing around with some of those things. We shared this wheel at a recent Perkins meeting in Anoka, which is the largest school district in the state of Minnesota. I said, well, that's not great. Can we borrow that? And of course, we're happy to share. That's how we work in Minnesota. But we took Forest Lakes. We called the principal there. They gave us their document similar to this, which gave us a start. So we are really working with our colleagues around it, and I appreciate all of that. So we're pretty excited about the career pathway. We're careful not to laminate it yet. We already see a typing error. We do think the pathway, one of the last bullets I think is important, that we are going to be able to see some gaps, and particularly in our career and technical ed areas, FACS, ag, industrial tech, business, or maybe some other. We'd like to develop our health pathway, for example. We can start looking at that in a different way. This helps us do that, and it'll help students kind of choose pathways. And we don't want students to think they're locked into a pathway, but it helps with our plan. And it's more and more important to have kind of a 4-year plan with some flexibility, but a 4-year plan is important. So I do apologize that I came for something else, but I made that up quite well. Thanks, Julia. Do you have questions about that? I'm sorry.
Is the Princeton one in draft form? I mean, is this draft still? Because there are some courses listed here that don't run. So will that be cleaned up?
Are they gray?
Well, they look blue to me, but I don't know.
Are you looking at the registration guide? Or?
I'm looking at the Princeton pathway thing, so like accounting 1 and 2 hasn't been run for a long time, right?
It has been since I've been here, but it may not be. We've taken it off if it's not in our registration guide.
Okay.
I should have said it is our first draft.
Okay. That's what I was asking.
That's one of the reasons. 'Cause
So these things are still all in the registration guide.
Is entrepreneurship listed there?
Somewhere.
Yeah. So Becky probably did our wheel for us and then we didn't adjust it yet. So it is not in the registration guide for that reason. So we're using it in kind of as a separate document. We do always have courses in the guide that are not run for various reasons, typically enrollment or staffing.
Any other questions?
I think it's a good tool. Yeah. I'm looking between the specific one to the other one. I think it's a really good tool.
Quick question on so as far as course selection and stuff, how does that get selected? I mean, I'm assuming, is it fluid where they can change it fast? I mean, just because I was just curious on people's interest change, so how do they?
On the document or as
on
a
different
student
courses?
schedule?
Yeah, exactly.
We have deadlines for changing courses. We have, I have a different outlook than our past. I've tightened up those deadlines. You used to be able to change a course like 6 weeks into a try. I think that's too long. We can be unstable that way. So there are some deadlines for dropping, adding a course. There's a lot of movement in scheduling throughout the year as students change their mind or hear about a course that is of more interest, or even, prefer a teacher. I mean, that's the reality. It was for all of us too, So there is some movement where they choose to take an online course. That's had a big influence for us, and we're looking at how we can work with that more effectively and predict that better. Ninth graders don't have a lot of choice. I mean, their schedule is much more, it's tighter, as we've extended the math. There are still some choices.
All right. Barb?
Okay.
Sorry about that, Julia. That's all right. That's another report further down the road.
Okay, I'm going back, well.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, next up is primary school hiring process.
Okay. Thought I'd bring you up to date on what we've been doing. We posted the position on February 20th, and between the beginning of the posting and last Friday, we received 52 applicants. So we thought that was a really, really good response. What we did, when I say we, John Beach, Jessica, Tal Gunderson, and I sat down. We looked at the applicants and we decided to get them kind of narrowed down by looking for people who had 2 years of experience or more as an assistant principal or principal. And that brought it down to, say, 15 people. And then we did criteria selections based on what kinds of administrators we were looking for, with numbers and grid and so on, and looking at veterans' preference and a lot of different factors, experience, licensure, those kinds of things. We created the interview questions and we set up the interviews for yesterday, and with the snow, we had to postpone those until today, this afternoon. And so we had 4 people who were interviewed, and each of the people on the team were teachers, administrators, secretaries, parents, people who are in the primary school. So we had about 20 people interviewing these 4 people, 4 of them, and then they did scoring, which John and Jessica are working on getting compiled and so on. So out of the 4, we'll know 1, 2, 3, 4, which ones are the top choices. And then
I will interview the two top. And I'll invite Eric to come along if they'd like. And then we'll bring you a recommendation.
On step 6, interview with superintendent March 6th. Obviously that
That didn't
today.
happen because
So-
we had regular interviews today.
Right, do we have a date?
No, we're flexible on that. So the good news is all of the people they interviewed were really good.
Great.
So that was good news. And so by the next time, we should be able to bring a recommendation.
Thank you, Julia. So we'll move on to action items under 11. First one is the revised budget, 2017 to 2018.
Any questions regarding the revised budget since we discussed it last meeting? Eric over there is laughing.
We've discussed it how many times here?
I think 12.
I make a motion to approve the revised budget.
Motion was made by Craig Johnson to approve the revised budget for 17-18. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Deb Alm. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Or do we have to do roll call?
It's roll call.
It is roll call, isn't
It is roll call.
Yes.
So we'll start with Howard.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Motion was made and it was passed. Next one, long-term facility maintenance.
The difference in this is that we're actually asking for approval for projects by summer instead of a budget year because they actually end up in 2 budget years depending on when the project starts. And also the second piece of this is we discussed doing a bond cycle. I did put in the motion here 8-year bond cycle, but you can change that should you so choose.
All right, so I need a motion for the long-term facility maintenance.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go by roll call, starting with Sue.
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes.
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 motion passed. Capital budget.
Capital planning is the same as other traditional years. Pretty much the same as 17-18. We're just asking to move forward into the 18-19 school year.
Do I have a motion? Motion was made by Chad Young. Is there a second?
One second.
Second by Dale Alm. Any discussion? Hearing none. By roll call again. Start with Howard.
Yes.
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 Motion passed. So building improved assigned.
In this category, we were basically asking for 3 projects for the summer of 2018. The first and second grade rooms at our primary, the onward remodel, and the district center public address system.
For a total of 422,000.
No, 6.
No, 6.
No,
Oh,
48.
Yeah.
It's
One for 148.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was by Eric Strandberg, seconded by Craig Johnson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll start. Howard?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Motion is approved. Next one, parameters for class size guidelines.
These, we discussed them when we met last, and there was a lot of good discussion. The the recommendation that's listed there this evening is the same from when we discussed our last study session for class size guidelines and for the enrollment predictions.
And just as an aside, so the budget is based on these two parameters. So next time, so it triggers a series of decision making. So then the next time we get together, we would have different options we would look at, looking at our expenditures and our revenues and projections. So we'll have, usually we have 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different options to choose from, which would be your recommendation as a board for how much, how you feel about the budget for next year. Whether we should make adjustments, whether we shouldn't make adjustments, whether we should dip into the fund balance and that kind of thing. So that's the next round of discussions. And then after that, it is talking about options that would be any budget adjustments if that's your decision. So I should also say that if the board would decide not to go with our administrative recommendation, it's just like a toothpaste tube. You squeeze it and it changes something else. So if you would make, if you decide you want to change the enrollment numbers, for instance, that impacts the options for next time. And that, say the enrollment, you want to go more conservatively, then we would have more adjustments that would need to happen to the budget. So everything kind of affects everything. Just so you.
It's all tied together. Enrollment and staffing are the biggest. They have the biggest impact on the overall budget.
Do I have a motion to approve the parameters for class size guidelines?
So moved.
Motion was made by Deb Allen. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Chad Young. Is there any discussion?
Well, I still have the problem with classes that are close to that 25 and don't make it. When we do have classes at the high school that are averaging below 15, and that is, valid, it is there. And some of it's because, well, we need to keep this program going. I have an article, I was going to read it, I'm not going to get into it because I know I'm in the minority here, and I don't have a beef just about speech. I do have a beef about classes that are close to running, that we do not nurture, that we don't give a chance to grow. And I'm going to send you the article from the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida, with the talking about how articulate their kids are, because they have speech programs and theater programs that start in their middle school all the way up. They have a newspaper program. They have a theater program that basically hits a lot of current events and things, and these kids come out being articulate. I also have schools in Minnesota that apply for theater grants, and we haven't done that because I'm sure we are even looking at it. And we're allowing some of these programs to flounder. And even though I'm going to go with the drama classes that do the fine arts requirement for graduation, when there are enough kids to run 2 sections close to the 25 each, and one gets cut. But then we run other classes that are in that 10 average. I have trouble with that. And I asked, and then we got kind of, it was tap danced around. Can we see Sue Van Hooser, what she's teaching, what the enrollment is? Chad Young, what are his classes? What's the number in there, whatever? And we saw the averages. How many are above the stand, the cap? How many are right in there? How many are below? Well, of those that are below, how many should not be running? So some of those that are close should be nurtured.
Yes, I just would say you can't have it both ways. When you have people who are tenured and you need to fill out a schedule, or you need to keep some advanced classes, sometimes you do have smaller ones. It's all a management decision. And, yep, it'd be great to have more sections. It would. But we have to cut something else then. So you're kind of like deciding what do you want to do.
You know, to quote what I said before the last time, what we're supposed to do is provide as much of, as many options as we can to educate. That's what we do. That's our primary thing, is to serve the students with what they need or what they want. And I understand if 8 kids sign up for something, it's not going to fly. But if 22 do, it should fly, you know? And we've done overloads in the past. We've done, sometimes we say, well, you know, we'll do a 0 hour. There have got to be ways to accommodate the students, because that was a comment I made numerous times over the years, and people on the board have heard it. We're not offering things, kids are leaving. They're doing online, they're doing PSEO, they're graduating early. And we're doing all sorts of things to retain kids. But if we're cutting programs and cutting electives, we're down to 1 foreign language when we used to have 3. For a couple of years, we didn't even have a business department, you know? Well, and Sue says we don't, you know? And we're just, what we used to offer when we had nothing seems to be much better than what we're offering in some cases now, when we've got more resources and got a better building and have all sorts of facilities and alternatives. So I'm a bit discouraged.
Anyone else?
I will just, because I've been in that situation where there is that balance, it's like you can't find another FACS teacher. So even if the FACS department adds some other classes, there are constraints, like Julia said, to, you know, you have to go a whole other FACS teacher and you have to go pretty far to find them. I feel that frustration, you know, overall, but it's like, it seems like the career and tech ed, the pendulum swung to more academics, and we aren't seeing enough of those, maybe anywhere, I don't know. Like the new courses that are presented, there's not career and tech ed, those are pretty high end. Where, you know, where are some of those other courses? So I don't know if that's just our pain or that's everyone's pain, because people got away from going into those fields because there weren't teaching jobs. And now they're saying we don't have enough, we need those people back in the field, but it's a school, it's hard to find them. So I echo your concern, but I also,
well, you know, yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt it, but 20 some odd years ago, when everything was dealing with technical writing and schoolwork, etc., I was on one of those task forces that we went to visit companies. And 20 years ago, plus, who were fluent in oral communication, they wanted people who were competent in written communication. We had a strong writing program. We had some strong oral communication things. Their line was, I don't care how much tech ed you have. I don't care how well you can do something on a computer. But if you can't stand up and make a presentation in front of the board of directors or your working group, you lose them and your talents aren't evident. If you can't sit at a group and share ideas and go to get a consensus to go somewhere, well, then you're not part of the team that we need. If you can't write a memo to get everybody on the same page, same place, same time, that basic, well, then we don't want you. You know, you're going to end up just being on the assembly line. You will never work your way up, and you will never be a part of, you know, the whole group. That's 20 years ago. And what do we need? We need the oral communication. Sometimes we don't even have it here at the board, you know, and we need the written communications. And those are 2 things that are strong in industry and anywhere. And, you know, every one of us has sat at a meeting and listened to a presentation that we started yawning. And remember when Dennis was here, smooth, and everybody bought exactly what he was saying. They didn't want to walk away with P, you know? So some of these things that are pretty basic, like writing and speaking, sort of like being able to walk and chew gum, and we need to have kids that can do that. At least it gets them through a job interview.
I don't think we have a lot of kids that can't do that. I think there are a lot of our kids that can articulate and write very well. And I think the majority of them fall into that at a very young age. So I think you're saying you're really putting a lot of kids down by saying they don't have that skill set because they went to school in Princeton. And I think that's a blanket statement that does not represent the teachers in our district nor our students and parents. It's a very blanket statement.
See, the thing is, with like students who can't write or can't speak, I remember my sophomore year, when we started like the public speaking unit in English, I was freaking out because we didn't start like doing public speaking until my sophomore year. I didn't have practice back in middle school. Like we did presentations, sure, but we didn't do like speeches. And so when we started our speech unit, I had like anxiety attacks before I did that, but now I'm fine public speaking. Like I get a little anxious, but that totally helped me. So I think that we should actually start that sooner. I understand that it sounds like you're putting students down and putting teachers down when you're saying like they don't have the ability to write or speak in front of people. But it's honestly so difficult because I know a lot of students who do have like social anxiety and can't talk in front of people because they haven't had that practice. And I'm just fortunate enough to be
Are there any other board members that wish to make a comment? All right, so my computer crashed, so I'm trying to back on board with the class. I believe everybody that wanted to speak had a chance to speak on this subject. So do I have a motion to approve the parameters for the class size guidelines 2018-2019?
Yeah, I believe you do.
Yeah, we did. Okay. That's right. But I have been listening intently. Motion made by and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
So ayes have 4 and the noes have 3. Motion passes. Enrollment. Do you need to know who the name were?
Yeah.
Those were Sue, Eric, and Howard.
Make a motion to accept the estimated enrollment 2018-2019.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Eric Strandberg, seconded by Sue Van Hooser. Is there any discussion on the enrollment? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Superintendent search. It's an update.
Yes, searching for a new superintendent is a big process. We had a lot of good discussion at the last time that we met, and really the goal of that original work study session was if we wanted to hire an outside agency to assist us with the superintendent search or to collaborate and work here internally on it. And so in front of us here, and what stemmed from that meeting was to do 2 things so that we would be able to post for that position as soon as possible, because timing is everything, and we're in the perfect time to start that search as far as getting the most quality of applicants. And the 2 pieces that we needed to complete before this evening were updating the superintendent job description and coming up with a Princeton highlights sheet. And a quick thank you to Gwen Anderson and especially Emily over there, who I'd like to give big kudos to for making that Princeton highlight sheet look so attractive and it looks professionally done. So thank you very much, Emily, for that.
She's a professional.
She is. She's really hit the ground running with several big things happening. So by authorizing us to move forward with that superintendent search, that gives us the green light, so to speak, to go ahead and post. So we could post right away tomorrow, thinking that keeping it open till the end of the month to allow plenty of time to get lots of different applicants and keep moving forward in that process. We have, from that meeting, we developed a smaller subgroup with Eric S. and Craig and Sue and I to meet and work collaboratively with the process. And we have our first meeting this Thursday. Bye, Lacey. Bye. Have fun at the game.
I will.
What did we add to the highlight sheet? I think you guys added something. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's been updated. Good question. It's been updated several times since it was originally posted on Board Book. We wanted to make sure that we could include a little bit of who we are and what we believe in, looking at the district profile, some of our financial highlights, sharing our district vision. I combined those two words, district mission, district vision. Listing our school board members, outlining what our strategic plan goals are, because that's a big piece of helping promote that, sharing what we're looking for, and then highlighting all truly the awesome things that our district has. And when we put this together, what we did was we looked at what other districts who are looking for superintendents, what their highlight sheets look like, and looking at the MSBA model and really combined it. And there was a lot of collaborative efforts in putting together all of those pieces that went into what you see here this evening.
Yeah, I think it looks great.
I do too.
Awesome.
I thought it was wonderful. I think you guys did
Yeah.
a great job.
Like
Super.
it.
We added, since you probably saw it,
Yeah.
we added the quote from Jody. She said that was fine. We also added how many grants, what
Oh,
the
that's what
total
it
was
was.
for
That's what it
grants.
was, yeah, the grants.
So
Isn't
that's,
that an impressive number?
Yeah.
that's Kim Young.
That's right.
So,
Big jump
but
on.
we thought that shows what initiative we've had in the district, so, yeah. So those were our big changes that we made that I think you probably noticed.
Yeah, I think everything looks great. I think I'll make a motion to move forward and authorize the director of HR to move forward with the superintendent search.
All right, motion was made by Eric Stramberg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Howard Mancourt. Any discussion? Kind of just had some. All in favor, say aye. All right, motion passed.
I'll post it tomorrow. And then these two documents, just kind of as for information, get attached to all of those postings. And we post in all of the major sites and we'll get it sent out.
All right, next up is 2018 and 2019 and 1920 school calendars. Is there a motion to approve? Motion was made by Howard Valencourt. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sue Van Hooser. Any discussion?
One thing, because we really can press the school year, there's already chatter about next year and the year after with the music trips that usually go through spring break, and there isn't much of a spring break. So maybe we have to change our culture and look at summer tour or something else. That's just.
Where's the chatter coming from? You're hearing chatter. Where, who, what, where, how?
That people are planning a trip already.
People, what?
It's
Who's planning it?
It's talked about in the high school that they're talking about a band trip next year or a choir trip or something.
So,
And I'm just
numerous
saying,
teachers or just a few? Just
a
one?
few, and what I'm saying is we don't have a break there. We have a Friday and a Monday.
I think.
Trips are usually every other week, correct?
Yeah.
Well, it was going to be,
Choir,
well, no. It used to be band choir year off, band choir year off. Then it used to be every other year. And then we changed it to, I think the policy reads, at the discretion of the administration. where they want trips. Because we weren't gonna control it.
It comes here. It always comes to the board table.
Yeah, the approval of the trips.
Mhm.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Next up, school liaison, police school liaison contracts.
Both of the contracts are very similar to the last time that we had a contract. A couple things are different. One is that we have, we will let them know, the police liaison know which dates they need to be here for evening events, as it's scheduled early in the school year. And both Dan and Barb said that won't be a problem at all. I think there was another change. Underlined. I think maybe that was the only thing. Oh, changing the distribution of the liaison officers. So it used to be, we had one for south in the high school. Well, now that the primary school is built, we have the person at the north end is in charge of all three of those buildings. And it's worked out just fine since it was built. So those are the two changes.
All right, do I have a motion to accept the school liaison contracts?
So moved.
Motion was by Craig Johnson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dale Long. Any discussion? All in favor, say. Oh,
I just had a quick question. I noticed that the difference, the city funds is 50% for the high school and, no, yeah, and 75% for, why is it different? I was just wondering, why is it different for the middle school versus the high school?
I couldn't tell you.
Because
And that
wouldn't it be this, when you
Prior to
the
the
same?
it's just been that way,
Oh.
and I didn't question.
To question it, it'd be a better deal if we could go 50%.
Well, we're kind
Versus
of late.
The other way.
We're kind of late.
Oh, okay.
We're
That-
kind of
Just
in.
for some history, those numbers were set up back when. So we've had a high school liaison officer for over 22 years. And it was started with a grant. And it was 75-25 shared. And the discussion at that time was that it's the city pays 75% of the high school, right?
Middle school. The ones that
Middle
are here.
Middle school.
Yeah.
So it's 50-50 with the high school, knowing that at any time, the city, the police department can pull that officer out of the school if needed for emergencies. And so the grant covered that. When the middle school started, the grant was it was split 75-25 with the understanding that that middle school officer would not be pulled because the district is paying 75%, which equals to 9 months of the year. That's where those numbers come from, and they've never really changed. And now the grants are done, so both entities are picking up. And it's always been that way.
We do pay for the police liaison officers out of our safe schools money that we receive from the state of Minnesota for the purposes of a safe environment.
Any other discussion on that? Hearing none, this involves money, so we'll start with Sue.
Yes.
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 Motion passes. Next up is the Rum River Special Education Cooperative.
right?
become fiscally independent. Yeah.
Sue and I attended a meeting last week to discuss this. Did you want to?
No, you talked about it in a minute.
Okay. Basically, what's happening is the vote to become fiscally independent was taken by the Rum River Governing Board, of which Sue is a member. And I went over it at the last meeting to let you know what was happening. Actually, we're looking at it because it will save us money, as well as it will give us more flexibility about programming and that kind of thing. We've had Cambridge Isanti as our fiscal agent, and when we looked at lots of other districts and lots of other co-ops, it's rare for a school district that's a member of the co-op to be the fiscal host. And it's almost a conflict of interest because they hold the purse strings. So anyway, so the thought was that we could become fiscally independent, and that has required many changes and amendments in our bylaws, and really doing a lot of study about what we would need to do to be fiscally independent. We have a new director who is very on top of it, and she's going full speed ahead. But as part of the process, after it's approved by the governing board, then it has to go to each of the school boards, and you have to vote approval or not of becoming fiscally independent. So, for instance, with us, it looks like we might have, projecting, we could have about $200,000 coming back to us because we would be fiscally independent. That, all of those funds that were left over at the end of the school year actually went into the coffers at Cambridge Isanti. So we were just interested in having it be more, so every school district would have a say about those funds. Maybe we would need another program, maybe we need more support for behaviors and so on. And that those monies could go that direction. But right now, it's a set amount that goes to Cambridge.
And the percentage was, they did a study across other cooperatives, and the percentage that Cambridge was asking for was higher than any of those others that we looked at. So the cost was going up for us to have them as the fiscal host.
The monies that come back, hopefully that has to be used specifically for
Federal programming, so a lot of it is federal special education.
You can use federal dollars for a lot of different things. You can even use it for staff development if it has to do with students in need.
so it goes into the general fund.
They would hold it. We expend the funds and then they reimburse us. So in our budgeting process, we have, as an example, 200,000 on expenditures. We have 200,000 on revenue. They hold the money until the expenditures, and we have to send a plan what those expenditures will be each year. So it's not like we would get it
And hold it.
and hold it. It would not help our fund balance. It was helping Cambridge. Now it will stay in Rum River. And
beyond the fiscal side of it, also the contracts for those Rum River employees were through Cambridge, and then those employees will become River Special Ed employees, and eventually will negotiate for themselves as a group, and so there will be more. They'll have a home in Rum River Co-op instead of being Rum River employees, but really being Cambridge employees, so that that relationship is also severing. That takes a year, right, for that to happen. So there are some upsides in it as well to bring those staff people into the organization that they actually work for, and then have control of that and negotiate that. Now Cambridge negotiates it. So there are some advantages.
All right. So I have a motion.
So
Motion was made by Sue Van Hooser. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Craig Johnson. Any other discussion? Questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Fiscally independent. I like those two words. So additions to the agenda. So Sue, you pulled off under the consent agenda the personnel. I understand you want to talk about it, but the personnel has other things on it. So if for some reason we decide we agree with you, then how do we vote on the personnel with everybody else listed? You see what I mean?
I know. I didn't want this to be complicated. So if there's a different, do you want me to say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So it's not about the person, but whenever I vote and whatever, I am able to say to someone to ask me, how can you prove that? And in this particular position, because of the amount there, I don't have an explanation, but I also don't have the history of the development of that program. So and I did ask Julia, I did try to call you, we never connected to, I don't want to do something that's out of order here, but I wouldn't be able to answer that question to someone else, even with the information that Julia gave. So there's a different time or different discussion, because it's really more of a programmatic discussion, I think. I don't know. I don't want to go too far because I don't want to step over into, I'm not micromanaging here. I'm looking at this as a big picture, but someone's going to ask about that particular player, not the person.
Would it be helpful if I shared a little bit about hiring and how all of that fits at all?
Yes.
Sure. Having our best, most qualified teachers in the classroom, whether it be for an immersion program or any department or grade level, is really important for any of the classrooms. And generally speaking, because I know I can't probably dive into that, and it's not about that one person, but when they come with different types of years of experience and different types of education, then looking at the collective bargaining agreement and what we've done in the past for placing with people, we have placed other teachers at that highest step because of their years of experience. What makes it sometimes a larger salary amount is the additional education that they have, if it's just a bachelor's, if it's a master's, and in some instances, some people are working towards their PhD even. A little bit of background when we started to work with how this fits with the MDE visiting teacher program, because that was new to all of us. There were a lot of calls made to MDE that I called, this was like even, back in May, when we first started this journey and collaborating with them in the visiting teacher program and calling over to other districts, other HR folks. And one of the things that was shared with me was when you're looking to fill those positions, hire them as you would for anybody else. And part of what we do since like through the MDE program is there's what they call a foreign credentialing process that they work with through MDE, that MDE has them submit all of the coursework that they've done to see how it fits into a Minnesota license and how it fits into what we know and are a little more familiar with. So what the folks do is they submit a course by course evaluation. One of the main, there's lots of different services that provide that, or companies. One of the main ones that's used is called WES. And so they submit everything that they've done, and then MDE says this has the equivalent of like a bachelor's degree, or this has the equivalent of a master's degree or a PhD, or depending upon whatever level, and how their license, or where it would fit, or how it would look like, so to speak, with what we know and are a little bit more familiar with.
So, as you were explaining it, I was thinking I should stop you in mid-sentence, because I don't know if we're getting into the data privacy issues with talking about the salary, the history, or the salary, the education. If we're talking about the position, basically it's, do we need the position or not? We need this? That, to me, is we need a position.
Yeah, I tried to
I think we
explain
need
it.
to tread lightly here on
Right.
how we are.
I think, when you start having a value judgment about how much this person makes or that person makes, the reason that we bring things forward is because we have a lot of requirements and a lot of past practice, and that's what we follow when we place people on the salary schedule. So as a board, you've directed us to hire replacements for positions as needed. And that's your purview to say, yes, administration, please hire these positions. As a board, if you're afraid or you don't like the number, that would be a board action to say, oh, we're in a recession now, and so we'd like you to just hire all brand new teachers. I'm not telling you to do that, because I don't think that's a good idea, but that's the board's role to do. You would be, as a board, you would say, all teachers need to be first-year teachers if you hire them. We can't start cherry picking on the consent agenda.
Is this a new position, or is this filling one that,
It's filling.
it's not a new section, right?
It's a position that we need to fill, not a new addition.
So in a nutshell, you're saying best applicant, education, degree, and experience determined.
And the contract.
The collective bargaining agreement is what guides us, generally speaking, for all hires. Not just this specific hire.
All my devices are not
There you go.
Thanks, Sarah. Do you have any?
I'm fine.
So I'll entertain a motion for the personnel
So moved.
to approve.
Yep.
Motion was made by Devon to approve the personnel. Second.
Second.
Second by Craig Johnson. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, motion to adjourn, and just for clarification, now you're on policy and you're on policy.
Yep.
Yeah, you may want to update the committee thing that we
Yep.
approved last time.
Yeah, we'll do that, so. All right, so future meetings, we got Eric, March 13, policy, March 20th, and next board work session is March 20th at 6. Motion to adjourn.
So
All in favor, say aye. Aye. What I learned is we don't need a motion to adjourn, we can just say adjourn.
adjourn. Huh? I like it. Go for it. Take control.
there.